Up the Ladder, Session 10. So today we're going to teach you that nonfiction readers reread in different ways for different purposes. These are to clear up confusion, to make connections, to get new ideas, and even to answer questions. So I want you to think, have you ever seen a book you really loved and been drawn to, but you said to yourself, no, wait, I've already read that one. I better not read it again. Or has a part of a book really stuck in your mind, even if you can't quite remember what it was about? Well, let me tell you something that you might not know. A crucial part of powerful nonfiction reading, something that every strong nonfiction reader does, is reread. Yes, great nonfiction readers reread all the time. Today we're going to teach you that nonfiction readers can reread in different ways and for different reasons. They reread to clear up confusion, to get new ideas, to answer questions, and to make connections. And for each of those purposes, these readers might read differently. So we're going to use this chart to help us understand how we should reread and for what reasons. So the first is, you see a question mark here. A reason you might reread: to get out of confusion and get back out on track. So if you're confused and you want to get back on track. So how we reread? We go back to where we last understood and then begin reading again. So next to the aha picture, a reason to reread is to figure out what the text is really about, like an aha moment. So when we want to reread, then we go back to the beginning of the book and skim through to confirm our main idea. We don't actually have to reread the whole thing if we want to figure out what it's really about, which is the main idea. We can go to the beginning of the book and skim through our pages. The third one, a reason to reread, is to catch yourself up and remember what you read earlier. Sometimes when I read something, I forget what I read the previous day. So always go back a little bit to what you read the previous day and reread a little bit towards the end to remind yourself what is going on. So how we're going to do that, we reread the last few pages of the last section that we read. Another reason we can reread is to make connections from an earlier part to what we're reading now. So maybe I read a text the other day and I'm reading a different part of it today. Well, I want to make connections and see how those two are related to each other. So I go back to the earlier section, earlier chunk that I read the other day, and I go back and skim over that. Don't have to reread the whole section, but skim over it to remind myself what it was about so I can then look at what I read today and make a connection. You see, sometimes when we reread, we don't have to reread every single word. We can skim over it and look for the big ideas. Another reason we're going to reread is to answer a question. Okay? Whether it's a question your teacher has asked you or whether it's a question that you have that you've come up with while you were reading. To answer questions, we want to skim or even go to the table of contents at the beginning of our book to help us find the section that might answer our question instead of having to reread the whole thing. And the last reason to reread is we want to confirm something or challenge an idea that we have. So maybe you came up with an idea or you believe a belief and you want to confirm it. You want to make sure it's correct. You're going to go back to reread. So how do we reread that? We're going to skim through the section that talks about it and look for details that fit with our idea or go against, which is contradicting our idea. We reread for many different purposes, guys. We read when we're confused and want to get back on track, to figure out what the text is about, which is our main idea, to catch yourself up and help you remember what you read before, to make connections from an earlier part of the book that you read, to what you're reading now, to answer a question, whether it's a question you have or a question the teacher has given you, or to confirm or contradict or challenge an idea that you have. Remember, not all of these require you to reread every single page. Most of the time when we reread, we're going back to skim for ideas. So when you're reading today and doing your independent reading, make sure you use some of these strategies to go back and reread. If you have a question, go back and reread. If you want to catch up before you start reading, go back to the last few pages of the last section, reread the last few before you begin reading today. Those are good strategies to employ whenever we're reading nonfiction text.